Well, good afternoon and welcome to the principal's office. I am Principal Edward Gordon, and I'm so glad that you have tuned in for this weekly broadcast where we'll be interviewing educational stakeholders who have made a significant impact for themselves, for others, and with others in education. In the book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, written by Dr. John C. Maxwell, he talks about the law of modeling. The law of modeling states it's hard to improve when you have no one but yourself to follow. Today, I am grateful to have another special guest who is making a significant impact in education, Mrs. Teresa Cherry Cruz. Good afternoon, Mrs. Cruz.
Good afternoon. How are you, Principal Gordon?
I am doing great. I'm so glad that you are on the show this afternoon.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I would like to start off with a brief introduction of our guest today. Teresa Cherry Cruz is a licensed certified speech language pathologist who stands on the bedrock belief that communication is power. Throughout her years in public school education, Teresa has witnessed the influential impact that constructive and destructive communicative engagements have on the design and implementation of educational programs for students and families with special needs. As a certified speaker, trainer, and coach with the John Maxwell team, Teresa specializes in creating, building, and strengthening teams to use their communication skills to courageously imagine, design, and implement special education practices to honor, respect, and empower children and families. As a result of her once in a lifetime, never again parasailing moment, Teresa is a wife, mother, auntie who loves life, is the creator of memories through cooking and photography, but above all else, she cherishes family and community. Audience, help me welcome again to the show, Mrs. Teresa Cherry Cruz.
Thank you so much. It is so good to be here.
Yes, I'm excited for this interview this afternoon. So let's get started. Toni Morrison stated, if there's a book you really want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. Teresa, what is your story?
Wow. Okay. On so many levels. So, my story is the journey of a young girl who grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in a housing project, very loving family whose family really held education to its highest esteem. So even as a young child, there were three things that interest me: reading, writing, and speaking. I love to talk, I love to read, I love to write. So that's sort of where the journey begins, even though you don't really know it. When I got to college, I decided that I was going to college to become a teacher, because I just wanted the teaching and learning process to be phenomenal for every child. And I sort of kind of backpedaled my way into communication disorders. And that's where I was so intrigued about communication disorders, speech, language development, and all of those things. So I sort of kind of slipped into the field of communication disorders and pursued this journey to become a speech language pathologist. So that's how I started. I love language. Like I said, communication is power. And those who control the language and have the communication skills get to tell the narrative and tell the story. So for me, my journey is really about empowering both teachers, students, parents, families to become phenomenal educators. Communicators.
Very good. So can you just share with the audience, what is the role of a speech language pathologist?
Okay, so a speech language pathologist is part of every school's special education team. Their responsibilities are to design and implement communication programs for students who have speech and language problems. So they're part of a diagnostic team. When a teacher makes a referral about a student's speech and language skills, they're responsible for assessment, creating therapy interventions so that they will be able to successfully participate within the school setting. So they work collaboratively with psychologists, with social workers, all the special education service providers to make sure that the students have the support that they need in developing their speech and language skills.
Very good. Thank you for defining that role for the audience. And as you think about in terms of your career, what it was an effective professional development experience for you that you would like to share with other speech language pathologists that will help them on their journey?
Well, I've had some great mentors, but I've always been that speech language pathologist that focused on communication and focusing on everybody having understanding of what it means to be communicatively competent. So for me, my professional development always began at the table of special education. So when students are identified for receiving services, a team comes together. And one thing that I have worked for in an administrative position is to make sure that every voice is valued at that table. And I think every speech language pathologist has to understand that the parent, the teacher, the principal, the service providers, everybody has a voice. And when those voices are heard, valued, and respected, then you can develop an educational plan for that student to succeed.
Yeah,
So that's the team dynamics, team synergy is important.
yes, I appreciate you sharing that, not only for speech language pathologists to hear, but also other members of that team that are coming together around that table in the best interest of the students, allow an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for everyone to express the data and also the thoughts, and everyone's
Mm-hmm.
listening and to come up
Mm-hmm.
with a plan that's in the best interest of the students that they're there to serve. So thank you very much for sharing that. As we continue to think about it, you mentioned this that you have several mentors, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the importance of coaches and mentors in our life. Can you just share um, something that was taught to you or that you learned from a mentor or a coach that has helped you out in your career?
One thing is to show up, be prepared, and be consistent, and always to be the best, to put forward the best. So in the field of speech language pathology, there's always been a shortage of speech pathologists of color, bilingual speech pathologists. So it's always been that shortage. And I was fortunate to get into a program because of a grant that a woman, her name is Dr. Sandra Holly, who has since passed, but she had the vision of developing speech language pathologists of color to move forward in this field. And so I was able to get into that scholarship program, and within that scholarship program she created a community where each one looked out for another. And so as we went through the program and learned the skills and graduated and became professionals in the field, it was our responsibility to come back and help the people come along. So, reaching, lifting as you climb. So the one thing that I've learned from my mentors is that you are not in this alone, and the importance of community, to be authentic, to be yourself, but to be caring. It's not about me, but it's about the community in which I serve.
Very good. As I hear the influence that your mentor had on you as well as others, I was just listening and heard the fact of one, your mentor was creating an environment to develop and train others, speech
Mm-hmm.
pathologists, especially those of color, and
Mm-hmm.
also setting up opportunity where after the group, that environment received the training to go out and train others and have it expand. And that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the benefits and the results of good and effective coaching and mentorship, that it multiplies. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a great example of what you have shared with the audience today about the power of mentorship. So thank you for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about what excites you in the morning.
Oh wow. It's interesting because a lot of things excite me in the morning now that I'm retired. So, what excites me in the morning? I'm a person of faith. So, what excites me in the morning is I get one more chance to do something for someone else. So, every day is a gift. And whatever that looks like, whether it's a kind word or a smile, whatever that looks like, I get that opportunity to do it each and every day. So, that is what excites me.
Yes, opportunity to help others, and just another day is a great gift and a blessing. So
Hmm.
thank you for sharing that. So as we continue our conversation around special education, what are some of the challenges that you see in special education today?
Some of the challenges that I see are really on many different levels. First of all, the challenge of knowledge, particularly with parents and families. Special education is there's a federal law that surrounds and protects special students with special needs and families who have children with special needs. And sometimes parents are not aware of the rights that they have. So when you are unaware, you don't have the information, you don't know how to advocate on behalf of your children. So that's one of the problems that I've always tried to focus on, and to empower parents in understanding that law to make it as simple as possible so that when they sit around that IEP meeting, they too have power. The other challenges that I feel, which is really where I'm moving towards, is this whole state of compliance and complacency. Each child with special needs is different. When you meet a child with special needs, you've met one child with special needs. There are no two children the same. And so what has happened is sometimes when you look at the individualized education plans of different children, they all look the same. And so, even in this period of COVID and the pandemic and schools closing, and education has been the last entity to pivot. We are still trying to do many of the same things that we have done in person that may not necessarily have been effectively working in person, but now it's this screen. So the challenge is how do we create innovative programming, intervention, and learning plans that are effective for children and individualized for children that still meet the federal compliance laws. So that's a challenge that we have. Sometimes we get so caught up in funding, or not having enough, or different shortages in different areas, that we have a tendency to stay safe and do what we know. But each child is different. And so each educational plan should be uniquely designed for that child and that family.
Yes, as a parent of an 18-year-old that's on the autism spectrum,
Hmm.
and also being a school administrator, I
Hmm.
definitely see the need for parents to be better informed, uh,
Hmm.
opportunity to learn more about the laws and the services so that they can be better advocates for
Right.
their children. And yes, sad to say, that I've observed situations where IEPs have had incorrect names on them
Hmm.
because it's been a cookie cutter type of situation of
Yeah.
student A to student B. But we must
Hmm.
understand that every child is different.
That's
Okay. And
right.
we have to individualize the educational plan.
Educational plan. Right. Key word.
Yes.
Individualized. Yes.
Yes, and
Hmm.
that is not happening consistently within our schools, and that is something that we have to continuously advocate for, and also support our parents to be able to use their voices more effectively in the best interest of their children. So, thank you very much for expressing your views in terms of the challenges that we are still having today in special education. So
Hmm.
let's talk about your hobbies. You have two that you mentioned in your bio in terms of cooking and photography. And in talking to you last evening, you're taking some classes on photography. So share with the audience a little bit about the hobbies of Teresa Cherry Cruz.
Okay, so now again, like I said, I'm retired, so I get to do some of these things. But I really love pictures. I believe we think in images, we think in pictures, and pictures are worth like thousands and thousands of words. And when I was a speech pathologist, before moving into the administrative piece of it, I used to use pictures to develop language. That's what we would talk about. And so one of the things that I said when I retire was that I was going to become a photographer and take pictures and make picture books. And each picture book would be leveled. So there would be preschool picture books, moving forward. So the complexity of the picture would be leveled sort of to the grades. And within each picture, there would be a critical thinking question, a question for conversation. And it doesn't matter in these books what background, your culture, your color, your national, none of that matters, but it would be an image that everyone could relate to. So that's the journey that I'm on in learning how to take pictures that can really help the conversation. Because what I notice over the years is when people are engaged in talking, there's no fighting. even though we can't, we may not disagree in what we're saying, but when we're talking, we're engaging. And as we learn how to talk to one another, then we accomplish more, because children grow into the conversations that you have with them, around them, and about them.
Very good. Very good. You were talking about the photography hobby that you have in a book. It leads me to this question about what is the most recent book that you have read, and how is that impacting your actions today?
Well, I'm an avid reader, so I read 2 or 3 books at one time. But the book that I'm reading now that is having most impact on me it's called "If You Want to Walk on Water, You Have to Get Out of the Boat."
Mm.
And the reason why that book has so much impact on me is because I'm at that crossroads now. So, I'm retired. So I've done all those successful things that people do. And so I'm at this point now where I want to do something new and something different. But the world has changed. So I'm sort of at the edge, like one foot is in the boat, one foot is out the boat. So am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? So this book has told me to get out of the boat and walk on water. And there'll be fears and there'll be challenges, but remember my focus and remember what God has promised me. So that's my inspiration for showing up, being consistent, talking with you, and all of those things. So that's the book. Yep.
Very
Just
good.
walking on water.
Yes. And in your bio, also read in terms of being uh, an educator, being a wife, being a mother, being an auntie. How do you, what recommendations will you share with anybody about how to balance work as well as family and life? Because there's many educators that have challenges around that. And what have you learned during your career in terms of that work-life balance?
One of the things that I find and that I'm learning is that it's balance for me was always this judgmental thing. So what I learned about, because I would feel bad, like I'd have my to-do list, right? I'm going to do A, B, C, and D by the end of the day, and none of that would happen. Then I would feel like so unaccomplished, and then I would be late getting home for dinner. Like it would just be crazy. So what I've learned is that balance and juggling is ongoing. It changes, and that you have to be able to go with the flow and make sure that what's important is attended to, and that's every day, that's every moment, because how you start out in your to-do list, okay, doesn't always mean how it ends, and it's not a value judgment of who you are. So I think that every day, you plan and you have things in mind and you continue to do that. But I think that seek to have things flow in harmony, and that's what will bring it home for you, for lack of a better way to say it. So the balance, I don't think we ever learn that. I think we're forever trying, but seek for harmony and flow in terms of how things are working.
Yes, as I talk to other educators and mentor uh, school leaders, I there's a term out there that they use, work-life balance. But I agree with you. I think it's a more of harmony that you're one to
Mhm.
strive for, and you'll never have this balance of 6 hours of study
Right,
here, 6 hours here, 6 hours. It
right.
won't be that way, but definitely having a harmony and understanding that wherever you are, if you're at work, you're at work. If you're at home, you're with the family. So those type of things. But and I believe that I agree with what you're saying. That harmony is what you should be definitely striving for. So
Hmm.
I appreciate your comments around that. So let's talk about the John Maxwell team. You're a certified speaker, trainer, and coach with the John Maxwell team. Tell us a little bit more about why you decided to join the team and also the work that you're doing now that you're part of the John Maxwell team.
Well, I was following John Maxwell for years, like years. That is how I developed me, right? And so I would, like every book he's written, I've purchased. And the turning point of the book for me was the book that he wrote about the 360-degree leader. And in that book, he speaks of the fact of you can lead where you are. You don't need a title. You don't need to be at the head. And so that started me thinking about many, many things on that journey. So I used that for me. And then when I became an administrator, I had to develop my team. So I used his work to develop a team, right? So I entered into this administrative position as director of speech, language, and hearing services. And over the 10 years, that team grew from 16 to 37. So as I was using all of his materials and stuff to develop the team, I always wanted to do his certification program. So it was never the right time. It was either I didn't have the time or I didn't have the money, and then you're working trying to do the work-life balance, right? And so, so all of these things are like coming into play. So finally, when I retired, I said, I have time, I have money, I'm going to do this. So I went ahead, did the certification, and now I'm consulting with the team that I left in the school systems. And I'm just working with different educators in terms of mentoring them as they move into administration, but more so even having them look at how do we innovate and reimagine how to do special education post pandemic.
Very good. Thank you for sharing your journey to join the John Maxwell team and the work that you're doing. And on the screen right now is Teresa Cherry Cruz's email address. It's tcherry cruz, CRUZ, at outlook.com. Um, Definitely, you've heard great work that she is doing and will continue to do for special educators as well as for the teams. And you can definitely reach out to her by you going to the email addresses on the screen and learning more about her services and how that she can support you as an individual or your teams in your schools. And I would like to say that I'm just grateful for you to be on the show this afternoon and to share your story and the work that you're doing. And as we close out our time together, just thinking about the fact that there are students, teachers, administrators, other staff members, parents, community members, and board members that watch the show. What is one piece of advice or wisdom that you like to share with the educational community as we close out our time together this afternoon?
Oh wow. I would like first of all for them to stay encouraged. Um, Always use the power of their imagination for innovation and to pivot. And knowledge is power, communication is power, but the lens in which you look through is the wisdom that you would get on how to apply the knowledge that you know. So excuse me. So I would just like to leave with them, stay encouraged, but keep moving forward. Use that knowledge and that wisdom and that application to develop the programs that as teachers, your students need, as parents, your children need, and as administrator, what your school needs, so that your school is one school that works with both children who have special needs as well as children in the general population. It's one. And the goal is always, rather, where you are, that you are successful in your journey as in learning, in the teaching and learning process.
Okay. Stay encouraged and keep moving forward. And Teresa, I want to say thank you very much for being on the show this afternoon. Thank you for expressing wisdom and advice to the audience. And I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to this episode of the Principal's Office. And join us next week at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday as we have another amazing educator who is making a significant impact for themselves, for others in education. Thank you very much and have a
And
wonderful afternoon.
Principal Gordon, let me just thank you for the work that you're doing and how you continue to give people a platform to express. So many blessings to you, and stay encouraged as we all embark on this journey. So I'm so honored and appreciative of the time that we've had to spend together. So thank you.
Thank you for those words. And everyone, have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, Teresa.